let me take you back to 2011. It was just after my birthday and I was building up my GameCube collection. I bought Wario World, Billy Hatcher, Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, and Harry Potter Quidditch World Cup for some reason. But during all that time, I was on a hunt. A hunt for a decent price for The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. And one day I finally found it. A decent price, at last! I bought it in a heartbeat, Zelda joke. And so I waited. And waited. And when it finally arrived and I was able to hold it in my greasy, grubby hands, I played it. And it crashed 20 minutes in. Most people in my position would probably think, I'll get a refund. But no, being the idiot that I am, I decided to sell it on. But when I did, unfortunately the person I sold it to wasn't so much of an idiot. He wanted a refund. Because it crashed 20 minutes in. But I'd already spent the money on another copy of the game, which also crashed at the beginning. Long story short, I have no luck with Wind Waker. It's like God is doing everything he can to just prevent me from playing this game that I've always wanted to play. But you know what, God? Nintendo heard of my woes and they rectified them. And so thanks to that, I can finally play The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker with no bugs or glitches or lags or anything like that. And even better, it's in glorious HD. Hence the HD part of the title. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into the game I've waited a decade to play. The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker HD. Have you ever booted a game up for the first time and as soon as the start screen loaded up, it told you everything you needed to know about the game? Because in all my years of gaming, I never had that feeling quite as much as I did here. It's beautiful. This game isn't even in 3D. With that one song alone, you can already tell what kind of adventure you'll be going on. It's up there with a Civilization 5 theme. So bloody good! The story of Wind Waker takes place a couple of hundred years after Ocarina of Time. The game, as usual, centers around Link, who is on a mission to save his little sister. Okay, wait, then why not just call it The Legend of His Little Sister, Wind Waker? Well, throughout the game, certain evil presence and princess both make their way into the story, and so Link has to save Zelda too. What a way to spend your birthday. But that's in the later stages of the game, so I'm not gonna ruin it here, and it's actually a pretty cool story. The way they tie it in with the Zelda timeline is surprisingly interesting, especially with Ocarina of Time. Listening to the fairies that the Forbidden Woods is the Kokiri Forest, and Windfall Island is Kakariko Village. Oh, so they're both the same windmill. It's all fairies, but it's fun to speculate. When it comes to the gameplay, Wind Waker is, for the most part, instantly recognisable. Fighting enemies, completing dungeons, finding the right time to use certain items with certain people. It's the same Zelda formula you know and love, albeit with minor tweaks. One of those minor tweaks being Epona is now a talking boat. Doesn't sound so minor when I put it that way. Once you first get the chance to sail around on the Great Sea, you immediately get that sense of adventure, having a huge open world free to roam. That's pretty impressive for a sandbox game that's mostly water with little islands dotted around. Who knew that The Legend of Zelda and pirates would make such a great fit? Well, Shigeru Miyamoto obviously, but you see what I'm getting at. At the time of this review, I've done quite a bit of exploring the Great Sea, but I just know that there's so much more out there left to be discovered. It's great. One of the new additions to Wind Waker HD is the Swift Sail, which helps your boat sail a lot faster. This was put into the game because apparently a lot of people found the sailing boring and slow, but I never ended up getting it because I don't find it boring at all. Okay, that was a lie, I did eventually get it, but only because it was too tempting not to. To put it simply, sailing around, stopping off at islands to meet the many locals. Like, for example, this kid who makes me feel ill just looking at him. Hey, kid, between you and me, you've kind of had a bit of coming out your nose for the past half hour, and just get it with a bit of tissue and fingers, just get it, it's kind of, just blow your nose already! I know this is kind of a cliche when it comes to video games like this, but it really makes you feel like a kid again. Picking up a new game and having that sense of wonderment and adventure. I'm saying adventure a lot in this review, aren't I? And on top of all that, Wind Waker looks absolutely phenomenal. Like, I thought the original title on GameCube looked good enough, but oh man, this looks so good. It's all so crisp and sharp and awesome. It doesn't even look like a game, it feels like I'm watching a Pixar film. We are finally at that age in gaming where games literally look like CGI film. Time will tell if these extra bells and whistles will only compromise to the timelessness of the graphics, but something tells me they won't. Oh, and another thing I feel like needs mentioning. Toon Link is adorable. No, I'm not that kind of guy who ever finds babies and little kids cute at all. But oh my god, Link is so cute. He's so adorable. There really needs to be more Zelda games in the style of Wind Waker. Toon Link's cuteness has too much potential. But unfortunately, as much as I did like Wind Waker, I did have some problems with it. Like for example, when you're travelling around on the sea, sometimes— I'm just kidding by the way, this game is awesome. I have no problems with it at all. I remember when I first saw the GameCube version of Wind Waker advertised on TV. And I had no Nintendo consoles at the time. I was so sad that I couldn't play it then, and even more sad when I tried to play it and it crashed 20 minutes in. So I've been waiting all this time for the stars to align, where I could finally hold the box in my hands and say, I finally played it. And it was worth the decade of waiting. I was a pretty big fan of Zelda to begin with, but after playing this, Wind Waker is one of the best games I've ever played. And I know I've said that quite a few times this year already, but let's take this into account. Let's say I had to wait a decade to play Bioshock Infinite, or The Last of Us, or Ni no Kuni, or Tomb Raider. Would they have been worth the wait like Wind Waker HD was? I honestly don't know. If you saw my GTA 5 review, I said at some point that I'll always prefer games that escape reality. I also said that exploring a large open world is what video games are all about for me. The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, for me, is everything I wanted in a game. If I wasn't already excited for Zelda Wii U, I sure as hell am now. And so that's The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker HD, and holy crap, 10 years of waiting to play this game, and yet it still didn't disappoint. What other game can say— you know, I can't do this if you're just gonna stand there like that. What are you doing? Blow your nose already! Why are you just standing there? Aren't you aware that there's a For God's sake, looking at you just puts me off my food and I'm not even eating!